Okay, hello, everybody. Round two today. A lot of things are happening. I'm trying to keep up with everything. Nobody's in chat yet. There's everybody. Whoa, the chat must be slow. Rubber toe, Terry. Once again, at the first show, I told everybody Kay called and said she has a sinus infection. She needs to rest for a couple of days. A lot of good stuff on the first show, everybody. Make sure you guys go back and watch show number one. That's strange. Not many in chat. Carol, I'll wait a few more minutes here. A different time again tonight. We had a lot of intel out. Billy came out with a short one, 15 minutes. I'm going to do some photo shots here. My phone settings are messed up again. Hey, Carol, did you see who was on the Epstein list? Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to try to get going here. Be a late crowd probably coming in tonight. This one So there's that. Now they got them all squared. Check mark. Oh, Bernie Sanders. Lady Gaga. Madonna. Jim. So those are the ones that are checked. God dang it. Hey, Lucifer showing the list on Epstein. I had a square mark on it. Well, what do we got here? Epstein files, bombshell. Robert De Niro, the innocent person that he was. Here's a few more for you guys. Oh, yep. Carol. Okay, we gotta go do short videos for a bit. I don't want to do this one. Shoot. Can't play that one. See if I can play this one.
Friday, the Senate took out DHS from the 6 bills. So there's 5 bills that they're putting forward to pass: Department of War, Department of Transportation, Labor, Education, HUD, those. They put DHS on a CR until February 13th, meaning they'll get last year's money, same funding levels, until they work out their reforms. However, we know that ICE is already funded to the tune of 3 times their normal budget from the big, beautiful bill. So that won't affect them at all. Neither would a shutdown. It's all performative politics. Either way, Johnson has said they're getting together. It should be no later than tomorrow. I do not see any issue in them passing it. If they do not pass it, but I don't see them not passing it. Again, performative politics, but the government should be back up and running. I want to know, is anyone furloughed? Genuinely curious.
That was a short one. I got 2 short, Derek. Four minutes, I think, on the first one or 2.
That long ago, accountability. Now you can say whatever you want, anything you want on social media, and they'll do what? Oh, it's my First Amendment. No, that's not your First Amendment. That's your excuse. Because a lot of these people, if you did punch them in the mouth, guess what they'll do? They'll turn around and sue you these days. Oh, he did this, he punched me. They'll shoot you these days. They'll bring a gun to a fish show. Cowards. There's zero repercussions, though, see? There's nothing. There's no accountability. Everybody can say whatever they want on social media and get away with it. Oh, especially the left and the liberals. Oh, boy, they can want the president deceased. They can root for it, cheer for it, but the moment you say anything, just slightly, just something just real light, oh, they used to. But especially the liberals and the Democrats, they see you do it, no, boy, it's a piranha show. The other thing about technology, attention spans, I was just talking about it. I've heard people, and I've seen the comment boxes before, oh, this guy, he talks an hour, 2, 3 hours, all this stuff. If it's over 5, 10, 20 minutes, it's wasted time. Attention spans. Again, by design, they dummied Americans down to where you don't want to hear truth, real truth. You don't want to hear real facts. You want to hear your truth. You want to hear your facts. And you want it in your time zone, in your time span, in your attention span. You don't want to read. You don't want to study. And you don't want to comprehend. And the harder it is, you quit. You give up. Zero commitment whatsoever. Same thing with relationships. The first little bump, these days, people are quitting. Oh, you didn't answer my text on time. You must have been doing this. Principles, priorities, prevention. Technology is a big topic tonight. Technology. I say this all the time. People who know me personally, I say this all the time. The better technology gets, the dumber people get. Everybody has a phone in their hand today. At least 8 hours a day, some studies show. 8 hours a day. A little tiny computer in your hand. Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever you're using. You have all access to knowledge, information, and facts. The problem is you have what? Zero foundation. Because knowledge today, that word, knowledge, the word information, the word facts, the word truth, it's all over the board. But the common denominator in this situation, in this certain topic that I'm talking about, the common denominator is the foundation. Because liberals and Democrats, they use the word Constitution all the time. Oh, we got to protect our Constitution, blah, blah. They use the very key thing that came from our foundation. But it's only one piece. And it's not the most important piece. And in the old days, we had a...
Okay, that's the first one. I got a second short one.
Always had treaties. We've always had national mercies. Yep, truth, 100% truth. But what you didn't have was accountability, responsibility, and enforceability. You had appeasers. You had subpeasers. You had where they just tease you a little bit. Or they did this over here. And then they did what? What's my quote again? Chaos plus division equals power acquisition. So what they did is they divided America into all these little groups. And then these groups became subgroups. And those subgroups became subgroups. And that's why now you have people who call themselves they, them, this, a cat that wants to poop in a cat box in a bathroom at a children's school. And that's just one little subgroup. And guess who's at fault? You are. Because you don't have principles and priorities. You have zero prevention skills. You want to wait till poop hits the fan and then, hey, there's poop on the fan. Yep, it is, Sherlock. It's your fan. How'd it get on your fan? That's not my fan. How did it get on your fan? But no, not this time. The executive orders that are currently invoked, the executive orders that President Trump got handed rolling into 2017, they never expected infiltration from within. See, when you're being a good person, you're just being a good person. There's no reward for that. Your reward is if you're a Christian and you die, you get to go to heaven, paradise. So a lot of people out there say,
Okay, two small ones there, videos for DJ. I got the guy in the depth clock. He has a 8-minute one.
Today's date is January 11th, 2026. At the top, it says eliminate the middleman. In the center, the Fed. And at the bottom, let the golden age begin. This is not
Did,
just some random
anybody
artwork,
see
you all.
this
This
one?
is a full transition, all shown in one image.
This
And
was
I'm going to
6
break it
days
all
ago.
down
Do you
for
want
you
me to
all,
play it?
starting with eliminating the middleman. Because the middleman isn't some commerce. It's not a bank. It's not credit. The middleman is just a debt-based monetary layer that inserts itself in between value and the people. This is why you see that the Fed is under construction and out of time. No, it's not being upgraded. It is being replaced.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June.
Tim, you remember this one?
That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike.
We'll see. You guys remember
In
this
every
one or
case,
not?
I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
This image right here explains why it's being replaced. The whole systematic behavior, not just individuals. When you learn about the history of the Federal Reserve System and find out that it's not federal, there is no reserves, and it has cartel behaviors, that is why the time is up. Created back in 1913, many people called it a conspiracy, but actually it's just a illusion. And this right here just shows you how the illusion survived. Debt stacked on top of debt. And there's only one solution to all of it. Eliminate the middleman, the Fed. Now, if we remove the middleman, we have to explain how would we replace it. Because we know that the Federal Reserve is funded by the IRS and income tax and taxpayers' money. But notice something important. If you head on over to the usdebtclock.org, they've already removed income tax and taxes in general in the future business models. That's because the business revenue didn't just disappear, it shifts over to blockchain technology, over to the tax tariffs and all of the gold Visa cards coming in. This is why we have already entered into a super cycle. Not reform, not replacement. So the feds are not being destroyed. They're actually being rendered as unnecessary. The words Ponzi, cartel scheme, that's not just insult. Those are structural description of what the Federal Reserve is. They're the matrix. That's the whole entire illusion. And in this image, it explains how the public trust was managed. But the wealth is about to be redistributed. And this just proves the truth right here. America was never broke. It was just restricted by debt. Now we reach the bottom of this image. Let the golden age begin. This is not just some fantasy language. It is the transitional language. Notice the background. It is the age of Aquarius. symbolically pouring liquidity through natures like decentralization, transparency, and shared knowledge. Historically, centralized systems always give away, and the last time that we have crossed into this type of environment was back in 1776, structurally to a member-owned finance-scale nationality. This is how prosperity re-enters into the whole entire environment, not through printing, but through a whole entire structure. And this is where people think it's just theoretical, but it's not. It is happening at a policy level where you have Marshall Hayner, the CEO and founder of Metallicus, that will be on an X Space with Buddy Carter, one of the U.S. congressmen, tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on X to discuss digital assets, innovation, and U.S. competitiveness. Because you don't regulate something if you plan to ban it. You regulate infrastructure that you plan to deploy. Here in just a few days, Congress is going to vote on the Market Structure Cryptocurrency Clarity Act bill. And this didn't just start yesterday. No, this thing has been in the work and laid out the groundwork for years. This right here is what replaces the middleman. Identity, payments, compliance, settlement, all natively integrated. So when you look back at this first image now, you should be able to read it differently. Eliminate the middleman. That is the Fed's roles ending. The Ponzi cartel scheme. That is the debt-based system being retired. Golden age. That's where we get transparency, ownership, and efficiency returning. This is not a collapse. It is a migration, and it's happening in real time. This is why it's so important to know what you hold.
I can't. Sorry if I replayed that, but some people might have missed it.
Pretty awful, regardless. So, like, where are you at?
minute.
Specifically, you right here. Where are you at? Where are you at? Wasn't this your whole like shtick? Right? Save the children. Wasn't that you, Liz Wheeler? Where are you at? Because I go to your pages and I don't see anything from any of you about anything. I see you posting a bunch of mega slap, okay, and I see you posting a bunch of damn those Democrats and damn those liberals. These files are damning. And they're awful. They're terrible. Bringing back up the eat to pay 8 gay conversation, okay? Because it wasn't just about somewhat underage children, right? Because it was about ritualistic stuff. So where are you at? Why haven't you posted about this? Why haven't you talked about this? You got the first binders. You got to go to the White House and get the binders, and you got your... Where the fuck are you? Where are you? New media. Where are you at? Why aren't you out here with your millions and millions of followers demanding accountability with the rest of us peons? This actually makes me just as angry as the files themselves do. Because what was that?
Greg.
Why aren't you talking about it? Why haven't you posted about it? Where the fuck are you? You need permission? Did you not get permission? Who the fuck pays you to do this? Like, who pays you? Just come out with it. Just tell the people.
Right.
Because this is pretty newsworthy. This is what everybody is talking about. This is where the trend is. Far be it for any of you to try and miss out on a trend. Fucking worthless. You're worthless. I can't even... You were supposed to be the leaders of this movement. You were supposed to be the ones who steamrolled for accountability. Where are you? You know what? Fuck all of you. Every single last one of you. You're still following any of these people. I'm not even really sure why, because they're doing nothing but propagandizing you. Nothing. You can't trust anything that they're saying. Goddamn disappointment. What a damn disappointment.
Yep. She got that right. Okay, another 3-minute one.
Convincing the world that Putin and Russia are on the brink of declaring war on the US over, wait for it, Greenland. But over in the Kremlin, sources say they were laughing at these fake news stories. In fact, the real story is quite the opposite. Putin has been quietly cheering Trump on, encouraging him to stake a claim on Greenland for the US. Why? Putin believes in peace through strength, and a strong US is essential to world peace. There are other reasons too, more complicated and disturbing reasons, which we'll get into in a moment. On Friday, Putin dropped a bombshell that left the US media scrambling. He gave a speech and publicly threw his full support behind Trump's push to bring Greenland into the American fold, shattering the fear-mongering tales spun by the mainstream press in one swift move. Of course, the mainstream media is still missing the point.
It would be a great mistake to believe that this is just some eccentric talk of the new American administration. Nothing of the kind, in fact. Let me remind you that by 1869, the American papers laughed at the purchase of Alaska. The deal was called a folly.
Russian intel claims it's no coincidence. They say Greenland's sprawling, desolate shores are not just a source of critical minerals and a jumping-off point for emerging trade routes to the north. They also hide the nerve center of a global child trafficking hub, a shadowy relay point funneling victims from Europe's darkest corners to the glittering elite playgrounds of Washington, D.C. and Hollywood. As far as Putin is concerned, Greenland, part of the world's lost untamed frontier, a rugged remnant of the Wild West, must be brought to heel. Putin's response comes as no surprise when you think about what unfolds in the world's untamed frontiers. Consider the most lucrative enterprises on the planet, the kind thriving in the lawless backwoods of Ukraine. We're talking about child trafficking, which has now claimed the title of the world's most profitable criminal trade by a staggering margin. And Putin is at the forefront of the fight against this evil trade. Russian troops, alongside operatives from Putin's Adrenochrome task force, have unearthed nightmarish scenes in recent days. Sprawling mass graves filled with the broken bodies of children, their pallid skin marked by unmistakable scars of blood harvesting and ritualistic torment. The air hangs heavy with the stench of death, a grim testament to an operation that's allegedly spiraled beyond control. Make no mistake, the perpetrators of these crimes are desperate to keep this information under wraps.
Short one there. Hey, our ladies from TikTok. Older ladies.
The media says it's a revolt against President Trump's immigration crackdown, but that is a big lie. Here's George Soros's favorite senator, Chris Murphy, on Fox yesterday.
We're still pretending that ICE is going after dangerous people. Right now, 70% of the people that they are detaining have absolutely no criminal record. What is happening?
DHS says 70% of those they're arresting, and that's their number, do have some kind of criminal record.
What is happening in Minnesota right now is a dystopia. ICE is tear gassing elementary schools. It is disappearing legal residents into cars. It is murdering American citizens.
The governors of Minnesota, New Jersey, and New York all say they want the government shut down until the Trump administration reforms ICE to their specifications and abandons the immigration policies which got Trump elected. But this shutdown is not even really about ICE. It is a desperate reaction to an economic declaration of war on the globalist free trade system by President Trump. I'm Barbara Boyd, and I've studied the battle between the American system and the British free trade system ever since I first read about the American system back in the early 1970s. Today, I'll expose the Democrats' true motivation, show you how this parallels the first Civil War under Abraham Lincoln, and explain exactly how we win this battle in the midterms. So if you're up for taking the country back, please like and share this video. It increases our reach. They are lying to you about.
That was a short one.
That they deployed their most sophisticated intelligence assets against him. Just take a look at Trump's UN speech. Many say rightly that it was a no-holds-barred attack on the UN and globalism. But there was something even more profound in it. It was a frontal assault on the premier pet projects of King Charles: green fascism and unfettered immigration. These are King Charles and the British Empire's two primary weapons for destroying sovereign nations. And in his UN speech, Donald Trump took on both.
In closing, I just want to repeat that immigration and the high cost of so-called green renewable energy is destroying a large part of the free world and a large part of our planet. Countries that cherish freedom are fading fast because of their policies on these two subjects. You need strong borders and traditional energy sources if you are going to be great again.
Now, Charles has spent his whole life building these two pillars of global control. Let's start with green fascism. The British royal family has been in the middle of the creation of the environmentalist movement. One notable point was the World Wildlife Fund created by Prince Philip in the early 1960s. A little later on, Charles championed the whole carbon hoax in the World Economic Forum. But if you go back even further, what you'll find is that the British royal family was one of the key sponsors of eugenics. And after World War II, they recognized they had to repackage it, and hence came the environmental movement. But these policies are not just scientific claptrap, which they are. They represent a fundamental assault on the ideas embedded in Genesis that man is made in the image of the Creator and must continue that creation and multiply and subdue the earth. The British royal family's outlook, and including the current king, are fundamentally pagan. If you don't believe me, check out the design that was on the invitation to King Charles' coronation. It's actually called the Green Man. And believe it or not, a practicing American-based pagan, a guy named Stephen Posh, observed that in King Charles, pagans not only have a so-called ecumenical king, but a, quote, pro-pagan monarch, unquote. Now, if this is blowing your mind like it should be, you need to subscribe to Promethean Action's newsletter. Most Americans have no idea they're watching a pagan king wage war on Christian civilization. But we've been on this case for decades, and we can give you what you need to fight this battle. And let's talk about Charles' so-called ecumenicism. This is the pathway to his other pet project, the spread of Islamic fundamentalism. We're going to put in the show notes an article which called the then Prince Charles of Arabia, and goes through the role of Charles and British intelligence in fostering radical Islamic fundamentalism. The article documents that Charles created Islamic centers across Britain, directly patronized by the British royal family, and that he worked very closely with Saudi Arabia when they were the main sponsors of Islamic terrorism. This is something that Trump shut down in his first administration when his first foreign visit was to Saudi Arabia, and he told them in no uncertain terms to stop supporting ISIS. So it's not surprising that many of our viewers from Britain do point to Charles as the patron of the mass Islamic migration, which is destabilizing their nation and other nations. And if you go back to Trump's UN speech, you'll see he directly attacked both of these pillars. He called the green ideology and unchecked mass migration evil. He left no doubt in terms of what it is. And when you understand that these are Charles's personal weapons of imperial control, Trump's speech becomes a direct declaration of war on the British crown. Now, Trump did more than attack imperial globalist thinking. He raised the banner again for a world of sovereign nations and a peaceful, prosperous future. So this week, we saw the beginning of justice with the Comey indictment, the first domino in exposing decades, and again, if not centuries, of British intelligence operations against America. We saw Trump reveal exactly why they deployed those operations, because he threatens the very foundations, the ideological foundations, as well as the institutional foundations of their global control system. So every indictment that follows will expose more of this network. Every policy Trump implements will dismantle more of their control structure. But you have to be part of this battle, and at the deepest and most informed level. That's what our movement is all about. So celebrate the indictment of Comey by joining Promethean Action as a subscriber or a paying member and get on the inside of the fight. The British thought they could bring down another president. They deployed their most sophisticated intelligence assets. They weaponized everything. But the Comey indictment and other coming indictments and investigations can now bring down their entire apparatus because they risked it all because they know what's at stake. This isn't just about policy differences. This is a fundamental battle between the principles of Western Christian civilization, principles which the American Republic put into full political practice, and the pagan principles of today's kings, oligarchs, and would-be elites.
Okay, 2 short ones from them. I got 2 more short ones, and then I got a 3-part. Did we do the 3-part one with Benny Johnson in California? He had a short clips in California with fraud. So I'll be doing that.
Online.
What's up, family? Welcome back
4
to
minutes.
Out of the Darkness. I am Q. At this point, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle. You have to appreciate and you have to admire Trump's guts. The guy has guts. He doesn't care. He doesn't fold. He will go after anybody. And he has now brought the most annoying corporation in the United States to its knees. That corporation they call the IRS. He's now in negotiations with the CEO. Yes, there is a CEO of the IRS, if you didn't know that. The CEO of the IRS to settle a $10 billion lawsuit that was brought before the IRS or brought to the IRS from Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and the Trump Organization. This goes back to the 2020 situation when Trump's personal and business tax records were leaked by a 38-year-old intern or rogue employee over at the IRS, were leaked to the media. Now, this was done and the IRS was aware of it. They didn't stop it. They didn't put an end to it. And now Donald Trump is saying, you guys are going to pay us $10 billion for the damages. And of course, the IRS would like not to, but Donald Trump has them in the crosshairs, and there's no getting away from it. And so now, like most smart people that find themselves on the other side of the negotiating table from Donald Trump, who is one of the greatest negotiators of all time, anyone, whether they like him or not in business, will agree. Trump holds all the cards in this situation. $10 billion is what he's asking for. Will he get the full $10 billion? I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not 100% sure that he won't. But what I will say is this: they are settling. They are at the table. They are negotiating. And Trump has already got the money spent. He told the media today that he intends to give all the money to charity. He says he's not looking to get rich. He's not looking to put the money in his own pocket. But why not give $10 billion or whatever it comes out to be to the American Cancer Society or other charities that'll actually help Americans? Hey, I'm all about it. I don't like the idea of the we Americans paying into the IRS and then the IRS having to pay out. But what I do understand is until these people are afraid to lose what they care about most, which is money, they're going to continue to abuse the systems. And once these people who are the head of these systems, once these people who are on top start to feel the pinch, they will do a better job of self-policing themselves and hopefully will depoliticize themselves in the process. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is going to have all types of...
Okay, the latest on Q, 3 of them done today. I got one from Newsmax, and then we're going to do a 3-part Benny. I'm not sure if we played them or not. And then we'll do Billy's 15-minute one.
And my next guest, he's a fierce critic of Omar and has repeatedly called for her to be denaturalized and deported. This as she and her husband come under fire, under investigation for allegedly fake winery business. Her net worth has now increased to $30 million. Joining me now is Florida Congressman, a member of the House Education and Workforce Committee, Randy Fine. $30 million. She possibly married her brother. She may have been overseeing the largest fraud that this country's ever seen, billions of dollars. How is she still a member of Congress? How is this woman still here in the United States?
It's a great question, and thanks for having me. Look, Ilhan Omar represents everything that is wrong with our immigration problem. She came here under false pretenses. She engaged in immigration fraud. She has the audacity to crap all over the country that brought her in, and then she's engaged in fraud to enrich herself, going from being broke to claiming to be worth more than $30 million. So she not only needs to be in jail, she needs to be denaturalized and deported. Now, why isn't she? Because to expel a member of Congress requires 2/3 votes. And Democrats won't even expel someone who's been arrested for stealing $5 million from Florida. They simply care about nothing except power, which is why the other path we can take is prosecution. And I know that she's being investigated for the financial fraud, which seems pretty obvious.
Because, Congressman, that's a frustration by many Americans. They're like, okay, we keep hearing about this person and that person, Governor Newsom and Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. When are we going to see these people finally face accountability? I mean, you have Governor Gavin Newsom. He has the goal to run for president.
Well, the best way we can hold these people accountable is through our elections. It's why we cannot elect Democrats, because Democrats excuse it. Again, we have a woman in Florida who, it's clear as day, took $5 million from Florida taxpayers, put it into her campaign and won. And Democrats have said they will not vote to expel her from Congress. The only party out there that is fighting for Americans is the Republican Party. President Trump had a famous ad last year. It said, "We're for you, they're for they, them." Well, it's worse than that now. It's we're for Americans and they're for foreigners and criminals. That is the way that we can hold these people accountable. We have got to win elections.
You know, Ilhan Omar, Elon Musk also calling her a fraud because her winery, it has no web address. There is no product. We actually had a owner of a winery in the first hour. He said business is actually down. Never mind it increasing exponentially to $30 million. How is her husband, who, by the way, is a white guy, because she's always talking about white supremacy, this and that. How is he not under arrest?
Well, I think they're being investigated. I think what she's specifically being investigated for is she claims she's worth more than $30 million. Lying on your ethics form is also against the rules, and I believe that she is being investigated for that. But what we have to look at with Ilhan Omar is also the hypocrisy. She threw her arms in the air and went crazy because this guy sprayed salad dressing on her. Well, under her own definition, that was a peaceful protest, because when people spit on and throw things on ICE agents, she describes that as peaceful. The problem with the left is they've got no consistency. They have no logic. And so we end up with these escalating behaviors on the part of people, and all of it is their fault.
Congressman Randy Fine, before I let you go, I know you have a special cause that you are working on right now.
Well, I'm working on a lot, but one of them that I'm working on is making sure that we go after the folks that are creating these militias in Minnesota. We want to investigate the lieutenant governor who appears to be intimately involved in the Signal chat to effectively create a government militia to fight American law enforcement. That's not okay. These people need to be held accountable, and they need to go to jail.
They certainly do. Let's get some people in here.
Okay, Omar again. So let me know, Paul or Tim, on these three here. I can't remember on this one.
Homeless people reside in the Golden State.
It says 15 hours ago.
This was bought with taxpayer dollars.
15 hours.
Fraud. What the hell is going on?
Mayor Bass needs Skid Row for her to get federal money. But the reality is we could fix this if we want.
Can't believe it. I can't believe that never occurred to me.
Welcome to California.
We just had a whistleblower from inside of the homeless industrial complex. So you believe homeless shelters are being used by illegal aliens?
Yeah. So they're rallying protesters to come and surround us.
This is what LA looks like everywhere. Not just this street, every underpass, every ditch, every overpass, every single intersection looks just like this. You have been lied to.
3 minutes.
Gavin Newsom, the governor of this state, says that homelessness is down, that he's fixed homelessness, and he's setting records to make the state better. This is a lie. Here's a police officer who is trying desperately to engage with these homeless drug users in their filthy hovels that seem like they've been here for years. This is a choice by the leadership of California to allow this to happen in your neighborhoods. The politicians are handcuffing the police officers, not allowing them to enforce the law. They're choosing this because people have businesses here. Look, people live here. Why would they allow this? Why are those officers helpless? Because of Gavin Newsom and the Democrats in California. And in this video, we're going to unpack all of it. We're going to prove why the Democrats want to continue the homeless industrial complex. The billions of dollars spent in this state, $24 billion spent on homelessness. It's $170,000 per homeless person spent in this state. Look at that. That's a guy's house right there. You live right there. You're moving because you can't take all the homeless.
Yeah.
Your children live here.
Yeah, it's not part for the street.
Oh, of course not. It's not safe. Look at that barbed wire. You're living in a war zone. This is all about trafficking in human misery. Look at this. So that's what we're going to be investigating in this video. The homeless industrial complex that feeds the Democrat Party and their donors in this state, and why they never want to solve any problem like that. Join us for this ride. It's going to be a wild one. Here we go. California has poured $31 billion of state and federal tax dollars into fighting homelessness over the past few years. That adds up to $170,000 per homeless person. Perspective, that's more than the median price of a home. Welcome to California.
Okay, part one.
Of 91 different countries. So what's the result of this astronomical spending? Homelessness skyrocketed in California. They added 30,000 new homeless people. We decided to head to Venice Beach to talk to actual homeless people to see if they've received any of the $170,000 that Gavin Newsom has spent on them. Listen to this. We're here on Venice Beach, one of the most famous beaches in the world, and it is absolutely disgusting. It smells like piss and weed everywhere that you go, and there's homeless people everywhere. Let's go talk with some of them and ask, has Gavin Newsom done anything for you exactly? No, nothing. So have you guys seen any of that money? Has anybody...
No.
I got nothing. I'm still right here.
Yeah, I didn't know there was that much money in it.
For $170,000, they could easily build longhouses with 50 to 100 hammocks in each one.
Have you seen any of that money?
No.
$170,000. Have you ever gotten any payments?
Get payment for what?
Yeah, exactly.
Trump said they're going to find out to see where's the money going.
There are 683 homeless nonprofits in California, over $1 billion in annual revenue. This is a massive industry. Take, for example, PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. This is a major California-based nonprofit focused on ending homelessness. According to their IRS 990 forms, PATH has a total revenue of $181 million. That's grown exponentially in the past few years. It's up 13% year over year. PATH spent $70 million on salaries and benefits alone in the past year. The CEO made over $300,000 this year. Man, you can really put a roof over your head in the homeless industrial complex. And hundreds of millions of dollars that California is spending on homelessness is going to fraud. Here's a report from just last week. $23 million gone.
This man was contracted with the city and county of Los Angeles
to house and feed up to 600 homeless people, but instead he was misusing tens of millions of dollars to live a luxurious life. The feds say Sucre defrauded the city and county of LA out of $23 million in taxpayer dollars for not only his mansion and car, but a second home in Greece, luxury vacations, designer clothes, and private schools.
Welcome to the world headquarters of Shangri-La Industries, a company that defrauded the state of California of tens of millions of dollars, saying that they would assist with the homeless when they can't even assist with the homeless directly outside of their world headquarters. They promised the state of California they'd build hundreds of units of affordable housing by converting old motels into homeless shelters. What did they end up doing? Stealing that money. Tens of millions of it went to pay for luxury goods, shopping sprees, expensive cars. It went to credit cards for Cody Holmes, who has now been arrested and indicted by the Fed in West.
Okay, last part, then we'll get to Billy Bean, 15-minute one.
Let's go. Welcome to the Weingart Center, a nonprofit that takes hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars from the people of California and delivers homeless skyscrapers at a cost of $800,000 per unit, including lavish amenities like gyms, cafes, dog parks, city views, and art studios. Homeless in California live better than you do. The Weingart Center is at the heart of a federal investigation into fraud overpayment on properties for homeless shelters. A real estate developer bought a former senior facility for $11 million using a fraudulent loan. And then they sold it to the Weingart Center for $27 million the same week. That's a $16 million profit, leading to their CEO and real estate director to be placed on leave. The absolute hellscape that is downtown Los Angeles. Drive through it. For every one open store, there are 10 that are closed. And that's because the homeless industrial complex has hollowed out downtown LA. There's literally nothing left. Some of these beautiful buildings, old theaters, some of the most gorgeous architecture you've ever seen left to rot and be graffitied. And that's because of fraud like the homeless industrial complex provides. For instance, Urban Alchemy is one of the nonprofits that gets hundreds of millions of dollars from the California taxpayer. Urban Alchemy promised the city of LA that if they gave them millions of dollars, they would be building beds for homeless people. Let's go ahead and check in on that project, which a recent judge just called obvious fraud. Let's go. The group received $3 million in taxpayer funds to build a safe sleep village in a parking lot that's filled with tents. Welcome to the famous parking lot homeless shelter, where the city of Los Angeles was billed $200 per night for homeless individuals to sleep in a tent. By the way, half of the beds that they were promised were not built. A judge said this is obvious fraud, and at a charge of $5,600 per month per person in a tent, one of the most expensive rents in all of LA. We are heading now to go see Steve Hilton. He is a Republican candidate for governor. He's doing great in the polls. And he has a location to show us that he says is the monument to homelessness fraud in LA. It is a abandoned motel that is supposed to be a homeless shelter. And it was purchased for $20 million. Nothing's apparently been done on it. It's still like an ongoing construction site. So we're going to go talk to Steve Hilton and see what we can find out. Let's go. It's my boy, Steve Hilton. Here we go. Great to meet up with you.
Okay, fraud in California, Vinny there. I'm going to play this 5-minute one before we play Billy. This is off of Mel's channel there, Swaz.
Insurance, you'll always. Let me ask you something first. If the dollar is still everywhere, if banks are still open, and if markets haven't collapsed, how can anyone say the fiat system is falling? That's where most people misunderstand what's happening. Because the fall of fiat doesn't look like a crisis. It looks like nothing. And that's exactly why it works. And here's why you should care. This isn't about panic or being anti-America. It's about structure, control, choice. Ask yourself this: can a system built on endless debt and unlimited money printing really last forever? Or was it always meant to unwind, just not all at once? For decades, the dollar wasn't just a currency. It was infrastructure, oil priced in dollars, trade settled in dollars, reserves held in dollars. If you wanted to participate in global commerce, you needed dollars. That wasn't a free choice. It was engineered into the system. Now think about this. If every country is forced to hold dollars, who absorbs the inflation? Not just the United States, the entire world. Artificial demand for US debt. Inflation exported globally, central banks trapped in dependency. It looked stable, only because nobody was allowed to leave. Here's the irony. The dollar's dominance became the weakest point of the fiat system. Fiat money has no intrinsic value. It survives on confidence, enforcement, and debt. And when the dollar was weaponized through sanctions, asset seizures, and financial exclusion, something broke. A so-called neutral reserve asset cannot survive once it becomes political. Did countries revolt? Did they dump the dollar overnight? No. That would have collapsed everything. Instead, something smarter happened. Not replacement, competition. And that difference matters more than most people realize. The strategy was simple but precise. No sudden abandonment of the dollar, no new fiat currency to replace it, no shock to everyday economies. Instead, quiet competition was introduced inside the central bank system itself. The system is shrinking naturally, not exploding. And this is the question everyone asks: why gold? Not because of nostalgia, not because of tradition, but because of properties fiat can't replicate. No counterparty risk, no political allegiance, no default risk, no printing. And here's the key insight. Gold doesn't compete only with the dollar. It competes with all fiat currencies at the same time. Ignore commentators for a moment and watch behavior. Central banks now hold more gold than US treasuries. The last time that happened was the 1990s. Ask yourself this: do central banks make trillion-dollar decisions by accident? Or do they see structural shifts long before the public does? They're buying gold regardless of price. More purchases are expected. That's not speculation, that's preparation. Gold isn't replacing the dollar with another fiat currency. It's replacing fiat itself, quietly, gradually, deliberately. People hear de-dollarization and think collapse. That's wrong. The dollar is losing forced dominance without triggering panic. That's not failure. That's design. We're told that if the dollar falls, everything falls. But the world was forced to treat the dollar as a safe haven. Gold earned that role naturally. This shift restores choice, not chaos. The United States remains economically and militarily dominant. Reducing pressure on the dollar system actually increases stability. That's why this transition is happening calmly. As Prof has said many times, reform is a process, not a one-day event. Gold doesn't attack fiat systems. It exposes them. Fiat loses purchasing power. Fiat expands exponentially.
This one okay,
Gold
guys?
doesn't. Gold doesn't destroy the system through force. It makes it irrelevant. Read that again. What's changing isn't new currencies, it's new rails. Better settlement, more sovereignty, less dependency. That's how systems evolve without breaking people's lives. So when someone says nothing is happening, remember this: the biggest shifts don't make noise. They show up in balance sheets, behavior, and structure. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. We inform, you choose. This library does not offer false hope or sensational claims. The information shared is based on observable structure and reality.
TurboTax locations are now open in your neighborhood. So, hand off your taxes to an expert today. Now local experts do your taxes with 100% accuracy.
Oh, that was it. So I hope that's off of Mel's channel. I think so. Was it? Okay, 15-minute Billy video. I don't know how many wants to hear cash videos tonight. I got 2 of them if you guys want me to play them.
time in Texas, about 4 p.m. Some of the things we'll cover. The sun is taking more shots at the earth. What's going on? There appears to be more shaking in California. And we see in China, Xi allegedly has a stroke. And the Chinese military is taking over areas of China and declaring its independence from the CCP, plus more. So let's get started. So this is from U.S. Intel. Just came out about, I'd say about an hour ago. President Xi of China is alleged to have suffered a cerebral infarction. That's a stroke. An artery in the brain is blocked. He's currently allegedly being treated at the China-Japan hospital, and also the a majority, it sounds like, of the Chinese army is currently in revolt against the CCP and has taken over different parts of China and intends to declare independence from the CCP. So that's going on. So we have this. So we have that that the CCP now lacks absolute control over China. So we see President Xi alleged to have a stroke. We see the CCP is not in control of China. And currently, based on my research, I do not know who is in control of the Chinese military. Maybe there are different leaders at different levels who have decided to split the Chinese army. You take your group, I'll take mine, and we'll take over different areas of China. So we see the 75th Chinese army has joined with other groups of the army to take over the Yunnan province, and also Ganji, Zhejiang, and Guizhou province. And the 74th is taking over Guangdong and the Hunan province. So we can see in this area, we have Hunan, Guangdong, Guizhou, Yunnan. It's believed that this part of the Chinese military, the 75th Army, Southern Command, and the 74th Army has taken over this part of China, and that they intend to declare an independent state in this part of China and to break away from the CCP. And we have another group who are the 78th, 79th, and 80th Army parts of the Chinese military, who are taking this part of China, Inner Mongolia, Jinlan, Laosin. And they also are going to declare this to be an independent state. And they are going to also declare their independence from the CCP. So that's going on. And these army units have withdrawn from Beijing. So it's believed at this point in time that Beijing has very little military control.
Hey, Kim.
So that's going on. And we have this. So we see what's going on in China, Xi with a stroke. We see revolt in the military. We see two different military groups, one taking the border of China with Mongolia, the other taking the lower part of China. And these two groups are declaring these two geographical areas to be independent states, and they are breaking away from the CCP central control. So I would say that this has to be jarring to the U.S. military and Russia's military. What's going on in China? So that's happening today. And now we have this, and the source for this was U.S. Intel. We have this also going on the sun. We know in the last 4 hours, we had 23 M class, we had 4 X class, the largest, and 8.3. NOAA and SOHO are now saying that these flares from the sun did produce some weak CMEs, and they predict February 4 to 5 that Earth may have a glancing blow from some of these weak CMEs and generating a low-level G1 geomagnetic storm. Now, all of this solar activity we've seen in the past 24 hours, certainly we would expect to see a juicing up of
Fannie Mae Pixies. When premium ingredients like smooth caramel, crunch,
earthquakes and volcanoes. I reported in the last week or so increased sun activity, increased shaking in California. Now, Earthmaster puts out today around San Francisco, San Ramon. We have been seeing swarms in California for the last month. Now we're seeing a dramatic increase in swarms and intensity today in this area, San Ramon, close to San Francisco. We've seen a 4.2, a 3.8, and many 3s and many 2s. Now, Earthmaster is an expert in California earthquakes, seismic activity. He puts forth, it's time to be concerned. And a lot of these swarms in San Ramon are happening on the Hayward Fault. So that's going on. And we have this. So we know, as I've put out, when we have increased sun activity, we had to have an impact on economy and also the war cycle. And we are seeing things going on in our war cycle. Now we have Iran, India. We had the carrier group move to this area. That's the Lincoln. And we're finding out today from China. So now, after I gave that intel update about China, we don't know who directed this, but from China to the Indian Ocean, a spy ship to watch the Lincoln. And now we have new information that another carrier group, the USS Nimitz, is also being sent to the Middle East. So that's going on. And we have this from the, let me see, for Iran from 2C TV. So this morning we had Israel hitting in Lebanon. They hit the Iran proxy Hezbollah. And it's believed they've taken out one of their leaders. So Israel's currently hitting the Iran proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah. And we hear that the Ayatollah is in meltdown. And it's believed that the U.S. continues to try and negotiate talks with Iran, and it's unknown. Clearly, I mean, a meeting will be set, then canceled, then set. So the status of meetings and what they even could be talking about is unknown. And we have this. So Iran has sent out drones to spy on the Lincoln. But the U.S. Pushed back on Iran and said they will not tolerate drones. I assume the U.S. shut it down. And that, Iran is getting help from China with a spy ship. And we have this, possibly another meeting Friday with Witkoff and Iran. So that's going on. And you know, they don't talk face to face. They have to have a third country to carry messages back and forth. Okay, we have this from U.S. intel regarding Iran. That the U.S. has deployed another carrier, the Nimitz. And also the U.S. has brought out from Japan one of two planes that exist in the world. It's called an RC-135 Combat Cent. And the plane is coming from Japan to the Middle East. And this plane is to detect, analyze, characterize radar via electronic signatures. And it's only used to gather more intel when the U.S. military is on the brink of potential combat. So that's going on. And we have this from the iPaper. Yeah, Russia had a base in Syria. And now it's coming out. Russia is withdrawing all of its troops from that base in Syria, which will be complete at the end of 2026. Russia now has no ties to a group. It was trying to, this is the story. Russia moved their military equipment and opened a military base in Syria to help a local group. Okay, called the SDF, but now the SDF is being rolled into the Syrian government, so Russia is pulling out. So that doesn't exactly sound believable. So now what is going on in China does appear to be very serious, and certainly is to give a shakeup to the U.S. military, Russian military, and so on. And we see the sun breaking forth, and it's highly probable that within the next 7 to 10 days, we could see possibly a strong earthquake in California. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, we got two Billies out today. The next one is a short clip. And we should ask the view why they don't talk about it. I'll ask you guys after the video.
For refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena to testify in the House's Epstein hearings. Now, why would they do that? I can't imagine why they would ignore a congressional subpoena and risk contempt. But you can be sure if that were Donald Trump, they would not be as quiet about it as they are right now.
I wonder
with
why
the
the View
Clintons.
don't talk about this.
And then President Trump sends shockwaves this morning through Minnesota as he tells the Democrats in Minnesota to get ready. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming. It can't come soon enough, if you ask me. This, my friends, is exactly what he was elected to do. Promises made or promises kept. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when they heard Trump's message. You all have a wonderful Tuesday.
does a
Let
good
me know
job.
your thoughts respectfully, please, in the comments. God bless each.
Yeah, I wonder why the View don't answer about that. This one lady, that one lady on TikTok here.
Establishes kings. He also assigns names for these kings, and these names reflect their identity and role. And anyone who reads their Bibles know what time we're in. So I find this name very interesting. The name Donald means world ruler. And we know in the end times there will be a world leader. We also know in scripture it talks about the last trump. And we know that this
is a good
last
one.
Trump holds a big significance in the end times. Now, on Trump's first day as president in 2017, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days. We also know that the Great American Eclipse happened on August the 21st of 2017, and it crossed the United States from coast to coast. And during his first term, he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And by the end of his term, he implemented peace agreements called the Abraham Accords. This again is very significant for the days we are living in. Trump won the 2024 election by 77 million votes. And that same year, we have a second American eclipse, which formed a giant X over America. Now Trump has made this board of peace to help with peace in the Middle East, where he will be chairman of this board until he doesn't want to be anymore. So he has literally made a government body that he is head of, and he doesn't have to be president of the United States to be head of this body. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? He has literally created like this mini UN, where he's getting around 60 countries to come in and be a part of this board of peace. I don't understand how any Christian can hear this and not have alarms going off. Not only that, but you have to pay $1 billion to be even a part of this so that you can vote on specific matters. But you can only vote on matters if the chairman allows you to. Therefore, he literally has complete power over this whole thing. And nobody's finding that suspicious. Also, these Muslim nations have jointly announced to join Trump's Board of Peace. And if you look at the nations, a lot of them are mentioned in the Psalm 83 war. And the crazy part is Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't even agree with some of these picks. So you have to wonder if he even has Israel's best interest in mind with this. Or is it just about power and other motives? 2025 marked 40 years since the young dealmaker Trump was pictured holding a dove, the symbol of peace, on the cover of a New York-based magazine with the caption, Donald Trump's ultimate deal. This was the picture. Why is this significant? Because 40 denotes a period of preparation for a God-ordained task or a period of warning or judgment. We also know this world leader is supposed to be blasphemous and also boastful. And I think all of us can agree that Donald Trump is the most boastful man ever. And how can he be seen as blasphemous? He states that he will be the one that brings peace to the Middle East. And we know that no man can do that, only Jesus Christ. And any Christian who reads their Bibles know that. So to claim you can do what Jesus Christ is supposed to do is blasphemous. It's truly amazing to me how Christians who read their Bible or say they do, don't see what is going on. We know that Christians won't be here when the world leader is finally revealed, but that doesn't mean that Christians, the ones with real discernment, can't see. We are living in biblical times, and it's time for people to wake up. If you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you need to get one now. The Bible says that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe that he died, was buried, and rose again for the remission of your sins, you will be saved. Don't wait until it's too late. Listen up.
Yep, she does a good job. So the next one, you guys, that's a new guy I don't usually play. It looks like he has a lot of followers, so he might be better than Cash. So let me know what you guys think on this guy. He does a lot of good videos.
Somali fraud, the largest healthcare fraud, public program fraud in the country, was uncovered in a state governed by Tim Walz. You will find out about the powerful donors involved in this process and why Minnesota has become an epicenter. And you'll find out that this problem isn't going to go away very quickly. But also there are some charges that the Trump administration can file in order to make sure that this is swiftly dealt with. My name is Ron Chapman. I'm a federal criminal defense attorney. I went on Newsmax just recently to speak about Minnesota, which prompted me to film this episode for you today because, of course, on off air, I take a bit more time to talk about the things that I don't get to talk about on national news networks. I'm coming to you casual today from Philly. I'm involved in a federal trial, but still carving out some time in the evening to bring this information to you. So without further ado, as they say, let's get down to it. Talk about Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz, big funding donations. You'd be surprised about where they're coming from, and a few surprises from the left that you may not be familiar with. Let's jump into it. Federal agents risking their lives. One of them even got their finger bit off. And of course, we have the unfortunate death of a ICU nurse who decided to bring a gun to what he called was a protest, but really was a felony obstruction of justice effort. This is all going down in Minnesota, and it's reshaping our borders as we see it. Let's start from the beginning. Many of you may not know exactly what a sanctuary city is. And of course, as a lawyer, I think I should probably bring that information to you first so you can understand how this problem is created. When any individual is arrested or detained, often they will be asked questions about their citizenship status, or of course, if people run their information and find that they are in violation of some citizenship status, they would be subject to a detainer request. That would be a detainer request by ICE that sends a request to the local agency once that individual is reported. And that detainer request would say, hey, hold them for a couple of days longer than what you ordinarily would hold them for your charge. So you catch a undocumented illegal alien drunk driving, you hold them in the drunk tank for a while, you press charges against them. And then you would contact Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and say, we have this individual who has stayed way too long on their visa. Would you like us to hold them? Now, in a normal working relationship, what you would normally see is this law enforcement entity, the Minneapolis Police Department, hold them for ICE, and then ICE would decide whether or not they want to detain them for removal proceedings, which are proceedings that are just governed under that part of the statute that removes people who have overstayed their welcome in our country, right? You're violating the law, you get removed. Well, in a sanctuary city, it's a little bit different. You see, in sanctuary cities, some cities have decided that they are not going to respond to removal requests or detainer requests, and they may not hold individuals longer just for the purpose of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So it creates somewhat of a catch and release situation. You have an unlawful illegal alien who is drunk driving, you take them to the drunk tank, and then when you normally release them like you would after their DUI charge when they're sober, you don't hold them in ICE detention, meaning they go back out on the street. What you end up having in sanctuary cities is a collection of misdemeanor and felony crimes.
Roku's self-serve ads platform. It's easier than ever with Ads Manager. Sign up today.
Diagnosed with Crohn's disease and struggling with your symptoms? It's not too soon to talk to your doctor about Entyvio for moderate to severe
in your population because those individuals weren't held for removal situations. And so, of course, when you're Donald Trump, you go to Governor Tim Walz and you say, hey, Governor Walz, I understand you're running a bit of a sanctuary city there. We've got to go clean up the mess because that's what the American public voted me in for. And Governor Walz says, no way, Jose. We're not going to let you into our city, and we're not going to enforce immigration and customs enforcement on our own people. So, Donald Trump, why don't you come get them? Well, of course, that's exactly what Governor Tim Walz wants, right? He wants the press to see law enforcement, ICE, marching through his towns, engaging in raids to rip his citizens out of their houses because it riles up the base that he wants to rile up, right? It riles up the base who's excited about tampons in the boys' restroom. It riles up the base that, is going to spend more time attacking itself and crying about it than doing anything constructive for our society. And it riles up the base that just really loves to see unlawful, illegal aliens sitting inside of our country with zero consequences whatsoever, right? Now, why is that important? Well, because that's how Governor Walz gets elected. In fact, if you look at the vote in Minnesota alone, if you look at the electorate, there is zero chance that without the program fraud and without the undocumented migrants being able to vote and get driver's license, he has absolutely zero chance of getting elected. So the king doesn't get to keep his power. Governor Walz doesn't get to keep his power unless he keeps these people inside. The game is almost up. Donald Trump being elected was the worst thing that could have happened for Governor Walz. And really what's happening now is he's paying the piper. And of course, when that has to happen, you have to make some unfortunate friends. And we're going to talk about those unfortunate friends in a little bit, but let's go further. Now, we've got Sanctuary City. We've got ICE coming into town because Walz won't do it for him. We've got Fry doing the same thing. And now we've got Walz standing in front of his electorate saying, we're not going to help these ICE agents. And in fact, you should be reporting them and filming them and getting in their way. Well, they went one step further, which was likely criminal in nature. They engaged rampant obstruction of justice.
So far,
and a conspiracy to engage obstruction of justice is a RICO charge punishable by a felony. Governor Walz is facing very real obstruction charges along with other members of his cabinet. And here's why. We just recently learned from a very brave reporter that we've got signal chats, encrypted chats being used by protesters on the ground. We call themselves protesters. I think we should really call them rioters. But encrypted signal chats are being used to communicate throughout the city. Now, if you went to Minneapolis right now and you wanted to go find out the location of an ICE raid so that you could film it, you would have a very difficult time. Why? These things don't happen all over the city. In fact, only a couple of times a day, ICE might leave the compound and go take some sort of action. In a large city like Minneapolis, there's absolutely no chance that you as a general reporter are going to figure this out. But Governor Walz doesn't want that. Governor Walz doesn't want mostly empty streets. He wants to make it look like Minneapolis is in riot conditions 100% of the time. And so what he's done is mobilize individuals by using these signal chats to find out the location of ICE. And once they find out the location of ICE, they swarm ICE with protesters and rioters and have those individuals engage in a bunch of obstructionist conduct to prevent ICE from doing its job. Now, protests are demonstrations that normally happen in a single place. We've seen cases involving protesters. We saw Occupy Wall Street. We saw other types of movements. One thing those protesters don't do is run around the city committing violent acts. What they do is they hold signs up. We see union protesters in our cities all the time. In Detroit, I'm used to it.
Pretty good, I think.
They hold signs up. They walk peacefully. They engage in peaceful time and place protests that are appropriate. Well, these aren't protesters. What they do is they find out the location of ICE. They engage in these groups that report on the location of ICE agents. And then once they find out a confirmed ICE target, they swarm it with the video cameras. They engage in obstructionist conduct and they make it appear as if ICE is all over the city, as if there's riots all over the city. But in reality, these are just the same few hundred people descending on each and every area. How did they get so organized? How did they get so coordinated? How were they able to pull this off? Well, that's where we get to our main subject of the day, a gentleman named Neville Roy Singham. Now, a very boisterous, And boy, do I say boisterous. Bill O'Reilly was screaming about this gentleman recently on, I believe it was News Nation. He was somebody that he said people should be talking about, and I certainly heeded the call here because I'd heard this name before, and I understood what he was up to, and I figured it was very important that we get to the bottom of it, or at least put a story out about it, because it's the real reason you're seeing disruption in your American cities, and particularly Minneapolis right now. Neville Roy Singham is an American tech billionaire turned Shanghai-based socialist who's funneled millions into radical causes worldwide. He was born in 1954, and he ran a large tech company that he later sold for millions and millions of dollars, which he has decided now to use on philanthropic.
I just built a budgeting app with Base
Yeah, I might
44.
play him more.
Nina just
He
built
does
an
a good
app.
job.
So we can all build apps now? I'm on lunch. I gotta make a call.
I'll be right back.
Causes like supporting riotous protests. His IT firm ThoughtWorks was sold for $785 million in 2017. But here's the hook. The philanthropy that he engaged in wasn't charity. Per the New York Times and congressional reports, he donated $275 million to pro-China opaque 501c3 and other outlets. Some of that was used to directly fund the riots and protests that we see in Minnesota. Evidence from House Oversight Committee probes in June 2025 links Singham to funding groups like the Minnesota Immigration Rights Action Committee, Democratic Socialists of America, and Party for Socialism and Liberation. They are all active anti-ICE actions. Fox News Digital uncovered encrypted chats mobilizing before the Preety shooting tied to Singham-backed networks. These signal chats were tied to Singham. He's funneled $20 million to the People's Forum in NYC, which organizes Shut It Down for Palestine protests and anti-ICE campaigns that spilled into Minnesota. Now, is this guy anti-ICE? Is he pro-Hamas? No, he's actually just a Maoist in China trying to disrupt America as much as possible, trying to get in the minds of your youth, trying to get in the minds of your children, trying to get into the minds of anybody who will listen so he can pollute it for his own cause, which is generally to create as much disruption in the United States of America as possible. He's using our free speech against us. In India, his 5 million news to click sparked money laundering probes for inciting protests. In the US, he's backed Code Pink. That's his wife's group with 1.4 million for anti-war demos that morph into border obstruction. Singham denies direct CCP control, claiming ideological alignment, but it's pretty clear that he is actually controlled by the Chinese government. Is he alone? Absolutely not. Congressional trackers and Washington Examiner reports point to George Soros's Open Society Foundation as being another funding source, which is donated to Antifa-linked groups and pro-Venezuela protests overlapping with Minnesota actions. We've got Singham, we've got George Soros, we've got millions of dollars funneling into these areas. This is where they get their signs from. This is where they get their organization. This is where they get their material. But most importantly, this is where they get trained algorithms and social media posts designed to specifically target your youth. Your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors may be brought to tears by what they're seeing on their Instagram feed related to Hamas, but it may very well be carefully staged by a Chinese Maoist CCP sympathizer who's doing nothing but trying to pollute the brains of American citizens. Mainstream liberal foundations and charities with ties to extremist groups fund PSL and Answer Coalition. They were involved in the LA riots that mirrored Minnesota's. A January 2026 report on pro-Maduro demonstrations tied these to CCP-aligned entities as well. Just about all of these causes that are against what Donald Trump is doing are funded by these outside groups. Some funding supports legitimate advocacy like education programs, but a lot of it obstructs law enforcement and it crosses the line. If donors knew the violent intents and the liability spikes and the implications of these sorts of donations when they're used to engage in actions that are potentially punishable by the federal criminal laws of the United States, you think they would think twice about giving. But of course, Singham lives outside of the United States. And while he's currently under investigation by federal authorities, I don't imagine he intends on returning anytime soon. Now, the Minnesota mess has ignited a political inferno. From corporate America calling for de-escalation to Senate Democrats refusing DHS fundings after the shootings, things are very polarized in the United States right now. Republicans generally revolt against unchecked force. Democrats have been crying about invasions. There's been a hotbed of political implications on both sides, but we know it's eroding public safety. It's causing government shutdowns, which we may be facing a whole nother one. And sometimes these protests turn into riots that actually hurt people and destroy property, which is not something we want. On January 26, 2026, Trump engaged in a pretty grand pivot right after the most recent incident that we will go into a bit later. We see that there has been some people marred by a bit of the tragedy in this situation. And the concern here is that this keeps going on, a powder keg may turn into something more serious. And Donald Trump is a lot smarter than that. So he knows that these protests are being funded by outside sources. He knows that Tim Walz needs these people around so that he can continue to get elected over and over again. But the one thing he can do, Donald Trump, politically to end all of this is exactly what I told him to do when I was on Newsmax just the other day, and he complied about a day later. Now, did he see it? I don't know. Did his people see it? I don't know. But I stood before the American people on Newsmax, and I said the best thing that Donald Trump can do is back off of the ICE raids, and he can tell Governor Tim Walz he's got one last opportunity to clean up his city, to clean up his state.
At Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is a spark.
To send the illegal, undocumented aliens outside of his city walls when they have federal criminal convictions, state criminal convictions, and when they have convictions that are related to violent offenses. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did, wisely. He backed off and he said, I'm going to change leadership and see what we can do to deal with these ICE raids. But Governor Walz, I'm willing to work with you, but you've got to work with me. If you've got criminals in your midst and if you're protecting them, you've got to follow federal law and you've got to allow us to deport them. We won't do raids, but you've got to do our job and help us out in the process. Remember, the danger here was created by Walz running a sanctuary city, not by Donald Trump. These people would have been slowly deported consistent with their criminal convictions at a time when they were already captured for the crime that they engaged in. They wouldn't have stayed in this country. They wouldn't have grown roots. They would have been politely removed out the right way. Governor Walz created this mess, and Donald Trump is saying, you've created it, you help clean it up. Right now, Walz is looking at the spilled milk on the ground. Donald Trump has sent people to come in and clean it. And Governor Walz is slapping his hand back and saying, you can't clean up my spilled milk. Well, that's not the way it's going to be, Walz. You're going to clean up your own milk, or the government's going to have to come back in one more time and do it for you. Now, in response to the PR saying that Governor Walz and Donald Trump are somewhat engaged in a bit of an agreement, the protesters turned on Walz. They stormed his Capitol and most recently were filmed outside of his Capitol with signs arguing that he's not doing enough. He made a deal with the devil, and now the devil's biting him back a bit, which is very unfortunate for Tim Walz, but I won't cry too much over that sort of spilt milk. So could funders like Singham face any sort of charges for the funding of these protests? And my answer to that is absolutely yes. First of all, engaging in these types of actions against ICE, not protests, as I've already said, it's riotous conduct. It is clear obstruction of justice. Engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct justice is a conspiracy to violate the laws of the United States, at a very minimum chargeable by 18 U.S.C. 371, a very popular charge for the feds. But in addition to that, it could also be a RICO conspiracy. Remember, We have nonprofit fraud going on in these places, pulling government money out and allocating it outside of the United States. That's what Ilhan Omar has done. That's the subject of a prior episode that I taped a while ago. Well, that money is getting outside the United States and it's finding itself back in the United States in the hands of these sorts of protesters who are protesting ICE raids and all of that. When there's a central source of funding doing all of this, and that individual is at the heart of it, and Tim Walz is aiding it through his policies, they're a violation of federal law, and he's going before the American people and the people of his community on camera and saying we are not going to help ICE and in fact obstruct them. And when apparently some people in his administration are involved in signal chats organizing these demonstrations that aren't demonstrations but really riotous and obstructionist conduct, we have the makings of a pretty solid RICO conspiracy. Now, RICO isn't just tied to the mob. In fact, I'm out here in Philadelphia dealing with a RICO case on the defense side. Often RICO is 2 or more criminal actions related to an organization that was designed for the purpose of engaging in criminal action. That's what a lot of these nonprofit entities are doing when they are just fronts. I talked about this funding Mamdani's campaign in New York, and the same thing is happening in Minnesota. You are seeing illegal actors violate campaign financing laws, obstruct justice in the United States, obstruct proper elections in the United States through using funding from illegitimate and illegal sources. And while Donald Trump was charged with many of these things, these crimes could actually be proven against these individuals. Mamdani could be charged with it. Walz could be charged with it. Ilhan Omar could be charged with it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Pam Bondi start bringing some RICO charges down on these individuals. Subpoenas are already flying. We're probably going to see some action pretty soon. Now, the most common comment I get from you in the comment section of Off Air, and I love all of you, I promise you, I love all of you. But the most common comment I get is, hey, nothing's going to happen. Well, that's true. It can be frustrating, ladies and gentlemen. It can be frustrating seeing nothing happen when all of this disruption is happening in the United States. But just like Tulsi Gabbard's investigation of Barack Obama, just like Pam Bondi's investigation in Minnesota, just like the investigations against Jim Comey and the current investigation against Hillary Clinton, we've been watching a lot of these investigations go down, and we haven't seen a ton of indictments. Well, these things take time to do them right. The charges against Jim Comey were rushed. They weren't done properly. We can't do that again. In order to see the real type of justice, the type of justice that sticks and holds people accountable for real things, it can't be a headline. We need real investigations. Listen, I believe in the 5th and 6th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Everybody deserves a fair trial. They deserve due process. They deserve intelligent and talented counsel to take care of that process for them. And I want to see even Governor Tim Walz, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama get the right counsel and the right process that they deserve, which also means the right type of investigation. So for those of you growing impatient, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm going to be with you all along the way. We're going to be talking about it all along the way. Make sure you hit like and subscribe.
So I'll keep an eye out on his channel. He doesn't get, he's a big follower. A lot of people. All right. Okay, this next one, let me know if we seen this one. I can't remember.
Biggest science experiment ever built. It's this huge tunnel, over 100 meters underground and 27 kilometers long, running under nearby homes and businesses and farms. And inside that tunnel, scientists put a long blue tube big enough to crawl through. And inside that tube, they put 2 pipes that they keep colder and emptier than outer space. And down those pipes, they fire particles smaller than atoms in opposite directions, pushing them faster and faster and faster until, when they're almost at the speed of light, they smash together, sending subatomic debris flying off into this massive detector. This underground particle smasher took thousands of people from over 100 different countries, $5 billion, and over 30 years to plan and build. My question was, why? Why do this? Why spend so much money and time to smash particles together in an underground tunnel? And now, why do so many people say that what we really need to do is build a bigger one?
Future Circular Collider, new particle accelerator, building a bigger one in Geneva, Switzerland, more than 3 times its size and twice as deep.
I'm going all the way to Switzerland, to the particle smasher itself, to understand what's really going on here, and to go on a journey that will forever change how I see myself and the world around me. This is Huge If True. Part of this video is sponsored by Shopify.
-1, please, yeah.
I'm in an elevator on my way down to the giant particle smasher, more scientifically known as the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. It's inside the biggest and most famous physics lab in the world, CERN. I can't believe I'm here. Getting to visit here is a really big deal. Thousands of scientists from all around the world gather here to do cutting-edge research about how the universe works.
All right, we're in a tunnel now.
Beyond that yellow door is one of the places where particles actually collide. Specifically, this one, the Atlas detector.
Oh my God. It's beautiful.
You good?
This thing is huge. To give you a sense of scale, just look at it compared to a person.
Look how small they are. Those are people compared to this enormous machine. How did you put this in here?
So we can see from down here that there is a shaft above us. If people have the hobby to build a ship in a bottle, it's exactly the same way of constructing. You have to lower it in and then construct it in place.
I'm so amazed that people built this.
This giant underground detector is where those particles finally collide after being sped up close to the speed of light around that 27-kilometer track.
Where's the collision happening?
So the collision happens over
Can I
here. So
stop
the
this?
detector is
Damn it,
symmetrical
play it.
around the collision point, and so we're at one end of it.
The detector is big, but the actual collider part is very small.
What you can see in the center is the Large Hadron Collider, so you can really see how tiny the beam pipe is.
Each pipe is about the size of your 2 hands, like this, or about the diameter of an orange, with thousands of magnets running along it that force the particles within that pipe into a space the width of a human hair.
I just accidentally pulled out one of my hairs in order to demonstrate this. Can you see this hair? Okay. Can you see this hair compared to the scale that we're talking about right now?
That's the size of the space the particles are moving through. But even a human hair is enormous compared to the particles themselves. You already know that atoms and the particles inside of them are very small, but they are so much tinier than most people think. Look at a single strand of your hair. Now imagine that single hair is as big across as the entire Earth is wide. Now, zoom in. The size of a single cell inside of that hair would be like the distance from Paris to Rome. Now zoom in again. A protein inside that cell would be like 6 soccer fields across. An atom inside that protein would be like 1 school bus across. The nucleus at the center of that atom would be like the width of a grain of rice. And the protons within that nucleus, they'd be like grains of salt. So a proton compared to the width of your hair is like a grain of salt compared to the entire Earth. And that is what scientists are sending flying around inside of this machine. Protons, which are being squeezed by magnets into a space the width of a hair. It is incredible that we can do this. As humans, we experience only a tiny slice of the full scale of reality. But there's so much more. Wait, but hang on. If they're sending these tiny little protons down a tunnel 27 kilometers long, how do they get them to actually hit each other? Just think about shooting grains of salt at each other from really, really, really far away. Seriously, think about it. How would you do that? If you just fire tons of salt, that's exactly what they do. They don't just fire 100 or 1,000 protons at each other. They fire 100 billion in bunches in each direction. And when they do that, 100 billion versus 100 billion, guess how many actually collide?
On average, we get about 50 or 60 collisions per crossing.
You heard that right, 60. 60 will actually collide, which is why they'll do the whole thing over and over and over again. 30 million times per second. There's approximately 3,000 bunches, each with over 100 billion protons, creating 1 billion collisions per second inside of this massive machine. Okay, so we have thousands of scientists spending billions of dollars to smash billions of protons in an underground tunnel. But why? Why do all of this in the first place? Well, if you look on the internet, you'll see that there are a lot of theories, from ending the world to creating black holes to it already ended the world and we're living inside a black hole to paranormal activity to new dimensions to hooded figures performing rituals to summon the devil. That last one was a prank, by the way. No, we are not doing any of that. The truth about what is happening here is both much harder to explain and much, much cooler. So strap in, because it's time to break your brain. When scientists smash these protons together, we get a glimpse at what might have happened close to the start of our universe, the Big Bang. That's because the collisions release an enormous amount of energy for how small protons are. But in the grand scheme of things, okay, ready?
Okay, I don't normally play her, but I hope that was okay to learn something. I'll keep an eye on her channel. So, Benny has some big news here on this video, you guys. Something that we've been waiting for. Yeah. This will be the last video, you guys. 10 minutes. This is 10 minutes, I think.
Train tickets are ordered. Now, the dinosaurs. What do you think? Compton's Encyclopedia or National Geographic?
You get all that with America Online?
Yeah, you can read Business Week online before it hits the newsstand. You know, I can even send email on the internet. And of course, there's my personal favorite, live chat. That's how I met my new kayaking buddies. We'll check that out later, after the game.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. President Trump said today at the White House that the Epstein files has backfired massively on the left, and they're about to retreat on the issue because they keep losing their biggest donors and their biggest politicians, whether that's Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, or Bill Clinton. It's hitting back on them because of Bill Clinton. It's turning out to be the Democrats who conspired with Epstein. You're going to see a pullback from them now, says President Trump today. This is after President Trump promised to sue people who lied about him, beginning with Trevor Noah last night at the Grammys. And, well, right on cue, literally hours after Donald Trump says this in the White House, the Clintons agree to testify before Congress. Now, the Clintons had refused to testify before Congress on Jeffrey Epstein. They said that Congress was just engaging in a witch hunt and that they weren't going to be playing ball. They were going to go into contempt of Congress votes, and that vote ended up being very bad for the Clintons. About a dozen Democrats voted to hold them in contempt on this very small committee. And so what that looks like is that they will guaranteed be held in contempt of Congress. And that means they could well be put in prison. You could serve 6 months in jail like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro did. The Clintons would be going to jail. The Clintons would be going to jail. This is Donald Trump's biggest campaign promise. I'd put you in jail, his oldest campaign promise, because you'd be in jail. And Trump was about to do it. And now the Clintons have bent the knee to Republicans. They will now testify about Jeffrey Epstein. This is going to be a wild one. Check this out. The Clintons, this is from Jamie Comer, who is on the Oversight Committee, who has been subpoenaing the Clintons, again, told to F off. And now, after the release of all of the files, which are damning to Bill Clinton and many of Bill Clinton's closest friends, they said, nope, you win, we lose.
That's call for football. What the season has been.
To that 33-point fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Let's testify. Do it live before Congress. The Clintons' counsel has said they agreed to terms, but those terms lack clarity yet again. They provided no dates for their depositions. Clarify the terms that they're agreeing to and discuss the next step with my committee members. So James Comer says the Bill and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify before the House Oversight Committee as part of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, just one day before they faced being held in contempt of Congress. Just perfect. I mean, just perfect timing for them. Just in time for Bill Clinton to be, well, photographed in a hot tub with one of the Jeffrey Epstein victims, or have Jeffrey Epstein's victims constantly on his arm or on his lap, Jeffrey Epstein's plane. By the way, this trip, very interesting little trip, this one. This was when Jeffrey Epstein flew Bill Clinton all around the world with young girls. And how do we know this? Why do we know this? Well, because one of the men who were on that trip, a very, very famous man, by the way, a famous actor. We know now that George Clooney was all wrapped up into the Jay-Z's name is in the Epstein files and so on. Jeffrey Epstein constantly reaching out to Hollywood actors and celebrities. Kevin Spacey was on this trip. Kevin Spacey, at the height of his fame, went with Bill Clinton on this fact-finding, I'm sure that's what they were finding, trip to Africa. And Spacey says, yeah, you don't understand. There were all these young girls there, and they put Bill Clinton in a really bad situation.
Fortunate that President Clinton introduced me a lot of business leaders in London because he knew I was coming to the Old Vic. Do you know who I never asked for anything? Was Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't want to be around this guy because I felt he put the president at risk on that trip to South Africa because there were these young girls. And we were like, who is this guy? So I will say this.
There were young girls on those flights.
There were young girls on those flights, yeah.
There were young girls on the plane. There were these young girls on the plane.
Yep, sure are.
And now Bill Clinton is going to have to answer for what he did with those young girls. Bill and Hillary Clinton agreed to testify before Congress. It's a stunning change of heart from the former first couple. The contempt vote loomed. It says here that they could have very well gone to prison over this. A remarkable reversal for the former president and secretary of state who were adamant that they would defy the committee's subpoenas and risk imprisonment for the Justice Department. And now it turns out their bluff has been called. This is amazing. You never see the Clintons back down like this. This is incredible. What a sea change of power. After both skipped the scheduled depositions earlier in the year, the Oversight Committee voted to hold them in contempt. Dozens of Democrats voted to hold the Clintons in contempt.
This just came out.
Although both have said that they had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. They maintained that their subpoenas were not tied to legitimate legislative purpose, rendering them invalid. The complaint, GOP-led exercise designated to embarrass them and put them in jail. Well, it was about to. You have no understanding at all of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Now, I don't know if this woman is wearing clothes or not. I know that Bill Clinton is sitting here in a hot tub like this, and that's one of the Epstein victims there in the hot tub with him. So what are you doing there exactly, Bill? Anybody? Anyone? Bill and Hillary Clinton cave. They will be testifying before Congress. Goodness gracious.
I wonder what they're going to say.
What are you going to ask them? Because they never get asked about this at all. They've never been asked. Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to testify. This is the greatest timeline. Doesn't Bill have a history of lying under oath about women he banged that are not Hillary? Released the Epstein files. Honey, WTF, incoming. This should be interesting.
Hey, Clara, yeah, we had a lot of
live stream. Who'll be asking the questions?
This just came out.
Don't get your hopes up. Why? Because Washington, D.C. is involved too. Yeah. Ask the right questions. It's critical. Oh, well, I'm glad they agreed to do what they are legally bound to do. Just a reminder, President Trump, of course, started his career by telling us that Bill Clinton was dirty as hell on Epstein Island. This is Trump's first speeches.
Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.
Trump then followed that up by saying that Prince Andrew, also dirty as hell, before anybody knew about Jeffrey Epstein.
In about 2 minutes.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
What do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
And then, of course, whenever the one time that Bill Clinton was asked about this, he gave the guy the death stare.
Can we comment on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, you can smile now, right, you guys?
Well, if the evidence, and then Bill Clinton's back to the guy.
God.
If the evidence does speak for itself, why are you scared of answering the question? Why do you have to have your little handler, which, by the way, is Bill Clinton's chief of staff here in the black beard, the little guy in the beard, little gremlin in the beard? Why do you have to have that handler come rushing in to try and save your boss? And speaking of rushing in,
You want somebody who's going to get up
this is what happened
day.
when Hillary Clinton was asked.
why's your husband visit Epstein Island 26 times?
I remember that.
This is Alex Rosen getting dragged out by like 5 security guards, dragged by his shirt ripped off, and drug out of the arena, and surrounded by maybe 6, 7 security guards for asking about Jeffrey Epstein. So we hope this doesn't happen to members of Congress when they ask about Jeffrey Epstein. Please, I beg of you, televise it, because as we've heard for years, I had everything.
I had Clinton, I had Epstein, I had everything. We want to know the truth. The truth is out there, and the Clintons have given up. Given up. Bent the knee. It's amazing. It's your boy, Benny.
Okay, that's the way to end the show with a big video there. Now, I wish they would televise that, but they won't. All right, guys, 2 good shows, a lot of intel. Hard to keep up with everything, but doing the best I can to get everything out. So, thanks, Carol, Tim, Lucy. Hopefully, Ann will be in tomorrow. Kay, prayers for Kay to get better here in a couple days. So, God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit the like and make sure you sub to the backup channels in the description box. Please, thank you. God bless. Stay safe. Stay strong. Keep the faith. And never give up. So, who we got here? Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Damania. Thanks for coming in, supporting, and I hope to see you more on here. My scheduled time's between 5 and 6, but I change my mind every day. So everybody be safe and stay warm. Anything happens, I'm always on. Something breaks. Signing off, Chico Dude, for another night of good intel. Thanks, Kim. Everybody.